If you're worried about getting offloaded at Philippine Immigration because of your current situation, this video is probably the one you need. I've already made a bunch of immigration guides, especially for people who are unemployed or sponsored, but I noticed I keep getting the same kinds of comments. What if I'm still a student? What if my tita is sponsoring me? What if it's my partner? What if I don't have a bank account? What if my cousin paid for my ticket? Basically, a lot of what if questions because your situation isn't exactly the same as mine. But seriously, I think you guys are asking the wrong question. Instead of looking for someone whose situation is exactly the same as yours, learn the principle behind immigration. Once you understand that, you'll know what to prepare for your case, even if your situation is completely different from mine. By the way, I'm Krong and I make videos that help you make the most of your adventures. Don't think of immigration as an exam where there's only one correct answer or one perfect document. The immigration officer's job is to assess whether your trip appears legitimate based on your answers, your documents, and all the information they have. They're trying to prevent things like human trafficking, illegal recruitment, people traveling under false pretenses, and other immigration violations. So instead of focusing on what question will they ask me, ask yourself what are they trying to find out about you. Usually, it just comes down to three simple things. First, will this person come back to the Philippines? So ask yourself, what proof do I have? It could be your return ticket, your certificate of employment because you have to go back to work, or school documents because you're still a student, future bookings in the Philippines, responsibilities, or literally anything else that shows that your life is here in the Philippines and you have reasons to come back home. Second, can this person actually afford this trip? Again, ask yourself, what proof do I have? So that could be bank statements, payslips, invoices, freelancer contracts, business permits, or any other proof of income. It doesn't have to be one specific document. You're just showing that you have the financial capacity for the trip. And if you're unemployed like me but you have savings, you can just prepare proof of those savings. For me personally, I also bring an affidavit of support signed by my parents. Do they pay for my trips? No, I pay using my own money. But if an officer questions whether my savings are enough, the affidavit helps show that I have financial support if needed. Having that paper is just my personal preference. Plenty of unemployed travelers pass without having one. Third, if somebody else is paying, is that believable and can you support it? So if someone else is sponsoring your trip, ask yourself, how do I prove that? If you're traveling together with your sponsor, like with your parents or family or partner, the officer can just simply ask both of you questions and then they can check if your answers are consistent and if your story makes sense. But if your sponsor is not traveling with you, then you will need the documents to support that claim. That's where something like an affidavit or letter of support can really help. You can also prepare proof of your relationship with the sponsor depending on who they are. Like if it's your family member inviting you to visit them in another country, you can have a letter of invitation. If it's for a special occasion in another country, then prove that there's a special occasion. If it's your partner or friend, then you can prepare photos together, your chats, your travel history, or other things that show that this relationship is real. Again, there is no single required document for every situation. The point is simply to have proof of your story if they ask. Don't just memorize answers or scripts you see online. Think about the truth first. If the officer questioned any part of your trip, what real explanation would you give and what proof could you show to support it? That's the mindset I use every time I travel. What I want you guys to understand is that immigration isn't trying to ruin your vacation. Their job is to assess whether it's okay for you to leave based on the information that's in front of them. If after asking some questions they really feel like it doesn't add up or there's not enough proof, they'll usually err on the side of caution. They are just doing their job. Does it suck if that happens? Yeah, of course, but it doesn't automatically mean that you're being denied. Sometimes you're referred for a secondary interview where another officer will ask more detailed questions and it gives you a chance to explain your situation further. And remember, they're not only looking at your documents, they're also checking whether your answers are consistent and your story makes sense. So how I think is, if I were the officer, what concern would I have about this person's situation? And in my case, since I'm unemployed, they're probably asking, what if this girl decides to work illegally abroad? So my honest answer will be, I don't want to work abroad. My life is here. If I wanted foreign income, I'd rather work remotely for overseas clients while staying in the Philippines rather than move to another country and start my life all over. That's the truth. But I wouldn't randomly say all of that unless they genuinely ask me. You don't have to always prepare or memorize your answers. It's just that I already thought about the possible questions they might have. So if they ask, I can answer naturally and confidently because that's the truth. That's how I feel. That's why don't just focus on the technicalities. Instead, ask yourself, if somebody questioned my trip, what truthful proof can I show? Once you start thinking that way, it becomes so much easier to figure out what you need to prepare for immigration. And remember, you don't need to prepare every single document under the sun, okay? Every traveler is different. Some people get through with just a passport and boarding pass. Others, like first-time travelers or people with red flags, might get asked more details. That's why I prepare extra documents, not because I expect to show everything, but just because I want to have proof in case they ask. Think of it as a backup, not a requirement. So if you have documents that you think make a really strong case for your situation, then you can just prepare that. But if you're a bit scared or your situation is not very clear, then you can always prepare additional proof to help. If you found this helpful, please follow me for more practical travel guides. I have a bunch of other videos where I share what I prepare, the immigration questions I've been asked, and other tips that help me feel more confident before flying. Hopefully this video made immigration feel a little less scary for you, and if you still have questions, leave them in the comments.